Welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and I do appreciate you for tuning on in today as we continue our trek down the line, looking at these prospects that the Seattle Seahawks have just drafted in this very exciting recent draft where you had a lot of picks, good amount of picks up at the high portions of the draft. And in all of that action and activity, you might have gone out and grabbed yourself your quarterback of the future. Once, 10 years ago, John Schneider went into the third round already with two quarterbacks in the house, seemingly not a need. Grabbed himself Russell Wilson because he just believed so much ultimately in his faith in the player. And Russell came in and won the job right from the jump, blew the competition away. He was ready to go. And John is certainly looking, it would seem, to replicate history here if he can pull it off. But in Jalen Milroe, who the Seattle Seahawks took in the third round, you have yourself a little bit of a different type of project. It's as you'll hear in a Daniel Jeremiah clip here in a second, there is some assembly required. Now, this is going to be tough ground to broach into when talking about this particular player, because I think it can come off as sounding like there isn't as much hope there to the point of it. It's going to hit, it's going to take off, and all of that good stuff. That's not where I'm at necessarily on this. And there's going to be a couple of legitimate reasons I want to present this. And we also have to understand that football is always moving and always kind of adjusting into new areas. And so what you might have seen from draft prospects 5 to 10 years ago and some of the rough edges around, their really dynamic skill they might have at the forefront, and that you don't have as much faith that could be developed. We might be in an era now where we're starting to have more of an ability to train things that used to be maybe the untrainable. And a place that you really start with Jalen Milroe before we get into tape and talk about anything, of course, is a little bit of just processing and how he sees things in the pocket, how things are clear or unclear to him at times, how kind of confused he can get on things. And he would seem to be just a poster child for this new style of player that should adopt what we really learned about was a key point of success to Jayden Daniels last year, where Jayden Daniels said once he went into LSU, he really locked in on the VR training. Really just hammered it as much as he possibly could. Because when you're doing football, you don't get as many of those reps on the field. There's just very limited amount of those that you're going to get, even if you are the starter. Whereas with VR reps, it's unlimited. How many can you run? How much can you stand to keep rolling with it and keep going with it? And in Jayden's case, he even took it another notch because he'd have the VR training, which is the play plays out in front of you, and then he would turn up the speed on it. So he'd make it look 1.5 times faster than what it actually looked on game day. And then Jayden Daniels gets to game day and you're wondering, why does he look so much like, this is not hard for him at LSU or at Washington. He's just everything he is seeing clearly. He knows right what he needs to be doing with the ball after every snap, seemingly at times, and rarely confused. And I think that VR training side has been a big part of it. The Seahawks have already indicated that with Jalen Milroe, they're going to put that at the forefront with him as well to help him out in this way. So it's really a specific thing with him. The physical tools with Jalen Milroe are absolutely there. He's as dynamic a runner for the position as you will ever find. And we've had quite a good few of them come down the line here in recent years. His arm is as strong as maybe you will find. I'm going to show you some throws where even on intermediate kind of tosses, he's going to pump that thing in there and it's going to have some RPMs on it. Your receivers are probably going to have a couple dislocated fingers throughout the course of the year with some of the, true arm talent that he has on that side of it. But for every kind of little good there's a little bit of the pick of a little bit of the bad there with Jalen on that side of it. What has gotten me a little encouraged on this draft pick in retrospect, when you start to now look more at the player, the person, and you're doing the scouting evaluation, it's so much really built upon looking just at the tape and tearing just through the tape. But when you do come back to the person here, this is a guy that is won the William V. Campbell Trophy for best in the country for his combined academic success, football performance, and exemplary leadership, if I can say it. His mother was in the Navy. His father was in the Marines. And I think that that's a real key point to this and thinking about this, because if you're going to be a quarterback who's going to come in with some rough edges to you, then you got to have that ultimate work ethic. If you're going to be I'm just happy to be here guy, I'm just here to collect my paycheck kind of guy, you're not going to take it to that next level. It's going to take some intricate, hard work to get there. And by all accounts, from everybody that you hear talk about Milroe, he seems to be wired right in that way. He seems to understand the great trek he has above him to reach that upside. And that in itself gives me a lot more encouragement when there has been so few success stories of these type of guys in recent years, because this is what it takes. The guy that can just keep on grinding, just keep on going. It's not going to be solved overnight. It's going to take a long period of time to make this go. It is solvable if you put the work in. You can improve in that way, but we just know many of these pros aren't wired that way to go that hard with it. Now, with an athlete, you're not going to find a better one for the position. His RAS score here, which is missing a couple of other little, short shuttle. He didn't do any of that stuff. Just ran basically the 40 at 4.4 speed, like 4.37, depending on who you saw clocked his time. He is 6'1", 217, so that's where that kind of lowers down his RAS score to kind of a 93 percentile athlete. But outside of maybe a little bit of slight size limitations to him, and he's not tiny, he's not a 5'10"-ish Russell here. He's got a couple more inches over the top. He's going to be able to see over some things most of the time. But as far as his 10-yard split, 40-yard dash, that's just about as good as you're going to get. Now, the split's not a 1.52 like a Brock Purdy has like a 1.52 10-yard split. And that's the split is an interesting thing to keep in mind here, because even though that's only like 0.4, 0.5 difference, whatever, it is still a little bit of a thing that you see with him where the getting away from defenders kind of on an instantaneous thing where they're right next to him. That's not always something that you see from him. It's a little bit more slight build-up speed guy. Not full on. He's got some get up and get away, but it's not as much of the instantaneous getaway that you'd have with a Russell Wilson or a Brock Purdy or kind of a Kyler Murray. And some of that is maybe that those guys are a little undersized, and so they can just kind of scoot real quick in that way. But he's not quite as much that. A little more of the build-up speed stuff, but you can see a very, very, very unique style of athlete. As far as his PFF scores go here, you've got last year Cam Ward at the top there, number 2. Jackson Dart right behind him there as far as their offensive PFF rankings. Shedeur Sanders, Kyle McCord, some very familiar names on in there. And when we come down here, just below Tyler Shock, in fact, tied with Tyler Shock, who also went in this recent draft, you have Jalen Milroe at 87.4 as offensive grade. So fairly solid there. When you get into a little bit more of his history here and what he's been doing with Alabama, he is a 2-year starter there. He's got about almost 700 attempts in the 4 years of playing there. And one thing that's a little bit of an oddity here is that you, of course, have him in 2023 with Nick Saban and posts a slightly better grade, but 20 about the same number of yards, but better touchdown to interception ratio, better yard per attempt average. There is a little bit of him maybe going slightly a little bit backwards this year in general terms. He lost Bond to Texas, so lost one of his receivers there. I think he had another guy, Burton, also went to the NFL. So did lose a couple of receivers, didn't necessarily have great dynamic tight ends out there to throw to. I mean, this isn't maybe your typical Alabama situation where they just have the 5-star guys all over the place. I know that they had the but they had the Ryan Williams, I think it is, kid, and he was dynamic, no doubt about that. But a little bit lesser on that. And then also you're going to Kalen DeBoer's offense from Nick Saban, which is going to be a little bit more built upon, spreading the ball around and doing that type of thing. Whereas, with Saban, you're going to go to more of kind of the power run concepts and stuff like that. So it's a little bit of utilization. Why you see maybe a little bit of the dip. He's being asked to do a little bit more as a thrower under Kellen DeBoer. It's a little bit more of a degree of difficulty that's going to be a bit tougher. So that speaks to a little bit of that, though. It does stand out that there's a little bit of the drop overall. Completion percentage goes down, yards per attempt go down, touchdown interception ratio go down. It is a tiny bit telling, but understandable again when you have a new coach coming in, new system, got to learn on the fly in basically your final college season. So he had a good year last year. They were definitely going to run their ball as much as they can to the degree. They're going to use his legs as much. I don't think they were looking to get him into a high volume state of mind. I don't think he'll ever really be, unless he really comes hugely forward, a high volume passer. I think this is a guy that is going to need to fit into a real balanced offense. And if you can do that, you can get a lot out of him. These guys can be maximally effective in this type of offense. It doesn't have to mean that you have to be a high volume guy to be a great quarterback. If you're super efficient, if you have your ability to use your legs in a dynamic fashion, then you can be just as effective as any other quarterback in this sport if you can lean on it in that way. There were some good quotes coming out of this draft. I thought that stood out to me from Mike McDonald, from John Schneider. Daniel Jeremiah was up on 710 yesterday, and he gave some interesting thoughts here. We also got a little bit here from Jordan Palmer, which talking about that VR, talking about that work ethic, talking about that internal fire and desire to get yourself to greatness. A lot of guys will talk the game. I want to be great. I'm here to cement my legacy. I want to live forever with my name. You'll hear all these things that they'll do the talking and the yippity and the yapping, but do you actually have the work being put in the background on top of it. I'm not talking about the Instagram shots where they're looking all pretty out in the sunlight and throwing the ball all looking great and it's launching out their arm and super slow motion shot. Not that. I'm talking about, do we have you're jumping on the VR. I want you to live with that headset on your head. I want you sleeping with that headset on your head. But then you're going to guys like Jordan Palmer as well. You're going to those gurus. You're going to those guys that are going to help you out because he needs help here to get the mechanics kind of fixed up. And this is the exact style of guy that you want him working with. Also a guy that works with Sam Darnold, has been working with Sam Darnold for a really long period of time. So a good track record in helping these quarterbacks along and just what you'd want to hear. This is exactly the kind of guy you'd want him fitted with. But let's first go through a couple of these cut-ups here that I want to touch on. And first, let's debunk the aspect of Milroe being used as a Taysom Hill type player, as Mike Macdonald was pretty quick to put some shade on that one when he was asked about it here at his recent press conference after day 3 when they had just selected Jalen Milroe.
I don't think it's fair to say Taysom Hill. I mean, Taysom's such a great player, and the way they used him was more of like a tight end fullback hybrid role with sometimes taking snaps. Jalen's a quarterback through and through. He's going to be trained to play quarterback for us, and when he's in there, he's going to be playing quarterback. So, but the athleticism is going to come to life, when he's on the field, and that's how he's going to help us.
I love hearing this from Mike Macdonald, actually. I know that there is a little bit of a draw here to try to get some value out of him initially while you're having him kind of wait for his turn to potentially be that starter. But I think that there's also now you get his concentration a little bit frayed in different directions with this a little bit. I think Taysom Hill's transition was as much to say, well, look, we know you'll never be ultimately a starting quarterback, so let's maximize you out in the best of ways is how we can, understanding that. I don't think that you've come to that same determination with Jalen Milroe. So you're not going to look him to make him, okay, learn how to play fullback, learn how to play tight end. Okay, learn how to take maybe some snaps out there at wide receiver. And okay, we'll flip you back in here on some trick plays. And okay, we'll put you back here on some select snaps at quarterback. It's a lot for a young guy. That's a lot, and probably a little bit, too much when it comes down to it on that side of it. So letting him lock in on being a quarterback, letting him develop in that way, understanding how important it is, this development time here now and even into next year, where I think you got to give this guy the 2 years to really give him his opportunity. It doesn't mean you can't, sprinkle him onto the field here and there if you've got some opportunities to do so, especially, third and shorts and stuff like that. But overall, be very patient with this kid and let him develop. Do the thing that NFL teams just kind of ultimately refuse to do. And they all get drawn to get the guy on the field, but let this guy have his time. And I think you're going to potentially be really rewarded with it, especially understanding the work ethic that does exist with this guy. A little bit of a reference here from the crew in regards to whether or not there is an immediate desire to get him to play.
Yeah, we don't use patience a lot around here. But there's always going to be an urgency in how we're developing our players and how we're training them. And, Jalen's going to be right there with everybody else. But, Sam's going to take by far and away over 90% of our snaps this year. And however Jalen deserves and earns the right to go out there, then we'll do that. If it's going to help the team, it's best for us to move the ball and, give these defensive coordinators some headaches, which is I'm really happy it's not going to be us. So that's awesome. Yeah, I don't want to put a timetable on it, but yeah, it's not an immediate need for him to go out there and be taking a bunch of snaps for us initially.
So again, good. Now you're trying to rush him out there. I think there's a little bit of a draw to try to get him on some select packages here, and there's a little uncertainty of whether or not he's truly leaning towards this being that they're going to have some select packages during the game, or if it's just a matter of speaking to more of the practice time. I think it does seem like there's at least a little bit of a draw to get him out on some certain select plays out there, have him run some read RPO option stuff. Mike Macdonald, as he's going to talk about here in a second, is certainly well aware of how hard it is to deal with really mobile quarterbacks and how much that can kind of level the field as far as your strategy and whatever play call you have in place. But it does sound like there's going to be maybe a little bit of the mix of packages in there, but it's really not going to be hopefully driven. I hope they're not just meaning this to what they're saying in a press conference here in April, but actually what they mean when we get to the pros, because I really leaned in and looking at these quarterbacks and doing some studying in recent years of quarterbacks, and that those that have had the time to sit and wait. Tom Brady waited a year. Aaron Rodgers waited a year. Brett Favre before him had to wait a couple of years before he really got the true, chance to start. Really good track record here with these players. I think Jordan Love's kind of coming along. He's not been able to kind of ascend to where like Aaron Rodgers has, but he's been a pretty good player for them. Another guy that has sat recently. You've got a lot more success stories of guys that have sat and had the opportunity to kind of develop and let the flower grow a little bit rather than rush them out. And we got a lot more failures of teams that just get really hot to trot to get those guys out, really driven by the magic of hope more than the magic of what they know they're going to see on the field when the kid goes out there. And that's where you get down to developing bad habits and lack of development. And it's just not a good game, especially if you don't have a particularly good offensive line in front of them or a fully developed offensive system. This next cut up I wanted to bring in here on Milroe with Mike Macdonald because he talks about something I really wanted to touch on. And I think if you take away anything from this show today about Milroe and what he does is beyond whatever you see with him on the field as a player, and there's goods and there's limitations, but that he as a man seems to be wired right. I have said that when it comes to quarterbacks, I kind of want him boring a little bit. I want him in a mindset that's going to be separate of other players on that field. You know, those guys that want to be swaggy, those guys that want to be flashy, those guys that got a little bit of the me thing to it. There's certain positions like receiver, you can be like that. You can't be like that at quarterback. You got to be wired right all the way down the line. And if you're a little deviated off the line, if you're a little deviated off the archetype, that much more chance, in my opinion, for failure. Let's listen to what he's got to say here on Milroe, the man, Mike Macdonald.
I think you feel the urgency and like the passion for like his vision he wants for his career and where he wants to go. And he's incredibly determined. I mean, this guy is a tireless worker, highly respected by his teammates, highly intelligent, and he's just really determined to become a great player and a great quarterback. We all have a lot to learn and grow in my career and his career and as a football team, and we all see that. And but it felt like it was a great opportunity to add him to the mix and be able to do it together.
Very much gets me hyped listening to him say that, where you're just feeling this the exact thing I'm talking about, that this kid's just got everything put together from a work ethic standpoint to go get this done. And it stood out to this team. It stood out to a lot of different people that talk about Jalen Milroe. And this will be what he's got to lean on to get to where he's going. If he did have this, there'd be no chance of this development to happen. This does give you a lot more confidence that it can occur, but it does really stand out in looking and doing this research of how much the person, I know that the teams will always say this in these press conferences by and large, but I don't think there's smoke here. And when you look at his track record, as I said, you look at what he's done scholarly wise, scholastically wise, and then where he's coming from with his parents in the background there, it kind of adds up and some of this makes a lot of sense. All right, let's get to my last cut here I had for Macdonald, just talking about how hard it is to defend mobile quarterbacks and how important this kind of element can be to an offense and what it does to defenses and defensive coordinators as they've got to prep up through the course of the week.
I mean, look, quarterbacks can extend the play are incredibly difficult to defend. I mean, the worst feeling in the world is you play the first play of the play perfectly on defense and you defend it and you're like, all right, sweet. We did it, and then the guy still has the ball, and then you got to defend the next play, sometimes a third play, and he can kill you in the first play, he can kill you in the second play, he can kill you in the third play. It's not a fun existence, to live consistently, So he has that ability.
Mike Macdonald, in many ways, is a defensive-minded coach that's cut from the cloth of being a chess master. My coverages, my fronts, what I do with my linebackers, my corners, it's all going to be in a state of flux and fluctuation. And what you see is never what you're going to get. And I'm going to try to confuse the hell out of you. But I'm going to try to take away what you do well and minimize that. And so it's a lot of this back and forth that's really built intrinsically upon a quarterback that at the forefront is going to try to be throwing the ball. And that's where they're getting all of their damage done. And they're reading coverages and they see the coverage this way, so they throw to that. And with Mike Macdonald, hey, we show you this coverage. You think you're getting this, but we're actually going to be doing that. And then you throw to that. And hey, you're throwing it to an interception. You're throwing it to a guy who's just standing right there because we've caught you. Harder to catch the running quarterbacks. It's a lot more chaos. It's a lot more randomization. It is, as he said, you can absolutely have the perfect play call. It's the old Tecmo Bowl. And this is an old reference for you younger kids. But Tecmo Bowl was like one of the original football games. If you each could call an offense and then the defense could try to predict the offense's play call with their call. And if they got it right, it would be an avalanche and you just destroy the whole play. There was no chance that it could occur. And it's a little bit like that with Macdonald, where he's talking here. If I can have like a Tecmo Bowl where I predict the play, I launch, I avalanche, it's going around the quarterback, and the quarterback just does a little pirouette, spins around, and runs it up the field for 40 yards and negates the whole thing. Like, we played it great. The call was absolutely perfect. His dynamicism ends up winning out, and there's just nothing we can do about that. And haven't we seen that so many different times here in Seattle when Russell Wilson was here? Where plays covered, nobody's open, he's got pressure bearing down, gets out of the pressure, Doug Baldwin gets into a secondary route, hits him down the field for 40 yards. And what do you do? How do you defend that? It's almost impossible, quite frankly. It almost is impossible. It takes the right kind of quarterback who's really smart in how he operates it, because you can, when you're getting that wild and that chaotic, you can get out of control at times. And one of the great things Russell, of course, did when he would do that is he was very certain about where he was going with the ball. You rarely saw him out there running all over the place and then throwing some haphazard wild throw into the defender's arm that was just one of those throws where you go, what are you doing there, Russell? What were you seeing there, Russell? You know, he tended to be pretty clean with that type of stuff. Very hard to develop to cover these kind of mobile quarterbacks, especially the element of guy that can run a 4.37 like Mr. Milroe can. All right, let's get to one on Daniel Jeremiah, and he had a really good interview with 710 yesterday talking about Milroe, and I think he got into some really good details on this. I'm going to be just playing a bit of a cut from this because he speaks to a little bit of, I think, inherently at the heart of what has had my skepticism here. I'm hopeful with the work ethic. I'm hopeful with all that stuff. But where some of my skepticism comes into with this, I think Daniel Jeremiah captures well with this cut when they just ask him straight up, does Mike Salk, whether or not he has faith that this development will come forward with Milroe, if he will realize this great potential.
I don't. I just think there's so much distance to travel in the pass game. But I mean, hey, let's see where it all goes. I know there's a lot of raw stuff in there, a lot of ability in there. But it's just, to me, there's a lot of assembly required.
It feels to me, anyway, from the outside, like that's something you could teach somebody, to just be a decent game manager and to just like do the little plays, because the big ones are going to come. If he could do that, couldn't he become something of a franchise quarterback?
I would argue that that's probably the hardest thing to do.
Interesting.
The exact opposite is being efficient and not going big game hunting and taking what's there and being patient. I think that's the more rare trait that you'll see. There's a lot of guys that can hit the ball out of the ballpark. It's just, to use that baseball analogy that I think Jordan was going for, it's the guys that are just constantly putting the ball in play and moving the line. I think that's one of the harder things to do. It's one of the reasons why Brock Purdy was missed by the entire league, because the entire league was looking for the reel of the splash plays and they didn't exist. It turns out the guy was just playing point guard and doing the efficient, easy things consistently really, really well. And that's why he's had the success that he's had.
Really great quote there, and does capture in a lot of ways where my stance kind of still stands on this. I'm certainly hopeful, and I want to be completely wrong on my evaluation outlook of Milroe from when I saw him, selected. I certainly think there's a lot of talent there, and the work ethic gives me a lot more encouragement as we've gone through the last week and kind of looking at this draft pick and thinking about it. But like he says, and I think he's speaking to a lot of his history and looking at these kind of players, and you lean on that history and looking at these prospects to kind of determine and predict these kind of things. It all is random. It all has an element of maybe luck and just things working out the right way and being the right system and having it all kind of click and having the talent level around you. I mean, there is a bit of that. And that's the part where I want to keep that opening for there being a lot of hope in this situation. But I think you also look at it with some sober eyes and understand too that this kind of guy's, has a hard time coming along to bring that specific side of the skill set up. And it does come to some of the throwing stuff, which of course we're going to get into in some of the tape outlook here. But Daniel does kind of at times here kind of capture where I feel myself kind of standing on this one a little bit on that faith angle. It doesn't mean you can't find some ways to find effectiveness on him, and maybe he can develop, like he said, you never know. You never know on these ones. And we are in that new era where there maybe is some new methods to be able to teach these guys. 20 years ago, I didn't have VR that I could hand my quarterback. Like, you're just going to have to get better at processing by looking at film. Versus, hey, here's some live action, here's some another rep, and you just keep repping that thing out until you get second nature at what could be like really tough reads. Like, I really struggle with making the right cover 3 read on hitting the over route, and hitting it on the timely fashion. Let's just run that again and again and again. So we're in a new era. There's hope, I think, from that standpoint of things, that maybe they can find some kind of useful way here to be creative in getting him over the mountaintop in that way. Jordan Palmer is the guy, of course, brother to Palmer, the quarterback that was taken number 1 overall, and he himself played a good amount of time in the pros to Jordan Palmer, but he has become kind of a quarterback guru for a lot of these guys. He's been working with Sam Darnold for, damn near, it sounds like 10 years since he was like in junior high. But he's also been working with Jalen Milroe, and another real great quote here, just speaking to a little bit of Milroe as the person. Another guy referencing in that who has worked with him in a fashion like this to get that feel, where he's not just talking about what he's heard about the guy, but actually in working and dealing with him, what, his take was on it. Cool little quote here. Let me get the right one, maybe, huh? Let me get the right one.
I think what jumps out and makes me feel like Jalen has, the trajectory that he does is actually not even physical. I just think it's who he is as a guy. And the coaches obviously felt that in the front office. That's why they drafted him. The teammates will feel that as they get to know him better. And I think you guys in the media will as well, that as unique as his physical traits are in terms of his explosiveness, top-end speed, arm talent, and just how dynamic he is, I actually think the traits that are most unique are, on the personality side of things, in terms of he's like a magnet. He's incredibly likable, but he comes from this military background of, it's not even about discipline. It's so much about just finishing what you started, doing what you said you were going to do, and accountability. And those are the things that I think in today's day and age, when you got young players making money in high school and college, that I don't see as often. And that's really what jumped out to me as I got to know Jalen last year.
So he's speaking again to the fact that the confidence in this comes from not just really what he sees in the physical ability, but what's up here, how he's wired, where the work ethic is. And when Jordan's referencing something like that specifically, and you're hearing McDonald reference it, or Schneider reference it, Kellen DeBoer reference it, his coach down there in Alabama, or even Saban, that's the thing you gravitate towards, saying that's what's got to be on point for these things to come forward. I'm going to show you limitations in his game. And the reason I wanted to lead with these clips at the forefront is so that we don't get too caught up on just, well, you're just knocking him and, it's taken. No, it's that these are the things that got to be cleaned up. He can have the opportunity to clean them up. There is a lot there that has to come forward, but he's got the time to do so. You're not grabbing the guy at the 4th overall pick like Richardson was, and okay, you're going to be out there next year at some point or another going full time. It's only a matter of time for us. We got to see what we got. Even that guy, you had to sit him for a year, but you draft him that high, the pull is all that much more to get him out up on the field. So I really wanted to kind of preface this a little bit before we get into the film study. I'm going to show you some good throws too on top of it, but that when we look at the negative side of it, again, coming back to where the confidence is engineered from, I suppose, in this situation, will be from how he is put together in his ability to be such a good worker and to come from that background like he is, to be able to take advantage of this, because it's going to take a lot. You're going to have to work your butt off to get here. That's why so many have failed that have had these kind of similar situations, is they aren't willing to take it to that limit, but he's going to have to. So let's keep rolling here. Let's get into some of the cuts that I have here for him. And I want to start out with the goods, because I will be looking at some of the bads here. So let's first kind of take a look and a glance here at some of the good things that Milroe does bring. And where it begins first is let's go through a couple of these dimes, because I want to show you really here a bit at the forefront, of course, first the arm talent, because that part is very true here. Oh, sorry, that's not right. Okay. Show you a couple throws here. Just some good little dimes, some nice little throws. Got a little fade ball here. Now, down by the goal line, sometimes he can get a little bit flat on his throws on these little fade balls, but pretty good positioning, good little throw. Catches the defender with his head turned back, not looking for the ball. Nice little toss there down the line. Step back, let it rip, put it right there in the hole. So he finds an in-cutting route. He gets almost kind of a cover. This is kind of a man situation, I think, here. Or it's a man match, I think. He's supposed to stay over the top, that's top side corner, but here you've got him in between a sea of bodies. This is where you can feel the velocity. I mean, this is a 20-yard throw. He just rips it down the seam. And he can stick it right in between those four white defenders there. So the arm strength stands out a lot in these intermediate throws. It's easy. It comes out. It explodes out of his hand. Relatively catchable ball. Sometimes a little wobbly. But these kind of throws on these kind of plays, you absolutely can feel that. He's got the RPMs to make every throw in the book. Sometimes the accuracy is going to be a bit of the question here, just hitting a little seam throw here. So he feels the slot corner go to the flat, kind of drive down, kind of sit down shallow here on this a little bit, and then goes right up the seam. He's a great seam thrower. So maybe that's probably his best throw is up the seams. But good recognition here. This is as much just he's recognizing, looking for these times in his tape because you don't see it as much of where you recognize the defenders and how they're flowing, and then you can take advantage of that. So that slot corner to the guy that catches the ball, he's going to go down low, and then you've got that wide open over the top. So it's good stuff there. Keep it going. A couple of these good ones here. Here you just can feel like, you want to talk about a ball exploding out of a guy's hand? I mean, look at this. I mean, he just about takes the guy's head off with this throw. That's upper end arm velocity right there, folks. That's upper end arm velocity, and these are the kind of wild throws where you go, whoa. And when Jordan Samuel or when Dan Jeremiah is saying he can hit the home runs, this is a home run throw. This is a throw not everybody in the NFL can make. And again, slipping it in between those three defenders, you're seeing again here how comfortable he is on some of those, middle of the field throws. Not as much a guy that's going to be as great, I think, outside the numbers. But he's going to be pretty good on the middle of the field throws. Hits a little crosser here. Locked in the whole kind of way there. But a nice throw, and this ended up going for a touchdown. I can't show the whole play because there's limitations on sometimes the time you can show these clips at. Got him over the top here. Again, lets it rip on an in-cutting route. I've shown you that already, one of these where he was able to hit that really well. Again, here just recognizing a cover three look there. That's a cover three look. Yeah, it's basically cover. I don't know. You got cover quarter half maybe or something. Kind of got maybe man coverage at the top and zone to the low side. But attacks the zone coverage. You got your outside corner playing depth. He's going to play deep. Milroe recognizes it. Comes back around and lets it rip. It's not a high degree of difficulty throw. It's more about the good read, recognizing the coverages there a little bit. Play action. These are never the easy throws. So these are tough throws because when you look at this, you're on the far hash mark here, or you're on the, near hash mark. He's throwing to the far hash mark. So you've got the width of the field in college football where this may look like an easier throw, but this is actually kind of a tougher throw. Having to go all the way back across the field. Just again, a thing showing off a bit of that arm strength. Great ball location there. Nice job by the receiver to come back for it as well. Outside here in Tennessee. Blown coverage here to the middle of the field. Recognizes again that slot corner is going to drive down to the, kind of head over to the flat and leave his man, leave it wide open. Milroe recognizes and hits it. A nice throw. There is, let's get one more here. I want to show a couple more of these. This is a throw I was showing you earlier, just a different angle. Gives you an idea of just feel how much you can feel kind of the RPMs on this throw when it comes out. Pretty quick delivery as well. Doesn't take a long period of time. Comes out pretty fast. Ripped right in there. There is times where you do get some progression reading from him. This is the place that's going to have to come forward. This is a place that, has to come forward with all quarterbacks. You can't quite, I think, feel it as much on this play of how he made the progression. I've got a second angle I'm going to show you. But he finds the crosser route here. Finds it first. This will show it a little more clear. So you can feel here, eyes go to the right. He's checking a couple reads that way. Comes back to the left and hits the crosser. So I'll play at full speed here. Looks to the right, comes back to the crosser underneath, and then look at the ball placement. It's right where it needs to be. Right on point. So middle of the field throws, accuracy is going to be pretty good actually, for the most part. Especially if it's an in-cutting kind of throw. He's got that stuff all day. Wisconsin game was maybe where he was at his best last year, where you had some of the highest level throws and some of his best tape. He's just got some great throws in this game. Another one here on a 9 route. Feet set, clean pocket, ball out fast. He's got to get the ball in there before the safety's climbing. The safety's got to help, right? This is another, you can feel the arm strength kind of throw. Because if you got a lollipop arm and you make this kind of throw, the safety's going to get there in time and be able to light your guy up. You can fit it in between the hole shot. He doesn't even get touched. Just a little bit of a representation there of good arm strength. Come back here again. Love this throw. I mean, strength and toughness in the pocket. The guy's not going to play scared. He gets whacked on this throw. Watch him get whacked here. Boom. Ball's right on time. Right on the spot. Guy's wide open. It's not that he's got to fit this into a tough hole, but the pocket's kind of bearing down around him. He gets hit. He can be hit and still get that throw off with his arm strength and still get the ball in there. I love this throw. God, I love this throw. Such a good toss. I'm playing one more time here. Bang. Right as he throws there. Love it. Good stuff. Another dime here from our guy. Right up over the top. Perfect. Up and out. And then, he could have put this, the guy's open, and he could have pulled this back on the guy to make the throw easier on himself. But look where he puts this ball to where it lands. He makes sure that this ball gets stuck into the back of the end zone corner where this guy's making this catch. Doesn't have to put up, but just ensures that corner's not coming back into the play. Sometimes quarterbacks can get lazy on this and be like, oh, I've got him beat, so I'll go this other route with it. And no, you don't need to all the time on that. It's a different angle on that one I wanted to show you, where he recognizes right here. He knows right here he's got nobody out there. This is going to cut out top of your screen. The receiver's going to cut it back out to the end zone. He knows he's got him open there, so starts the throw right here. Look where he starts this throw. He's in his arm motion. This ball is going to end up in the back corner of the end zone. Look where the receiver is. He's at the 10-yard line on the cornerback. This ball's out. This ball's out right now. And look where it lands. That's just I know it's a home run throw, and he can do these. We know he can do these. But he ain't going to have to clean this part of his game up. He's got these kind of big-time throws in his bag and absolutely can do it. Pocket awareness is something I'm going to pick on a little bit with him here. There is occasional rep where you feel the good pocket awareness. So on this play, he's got blitz coming from the backside. He knows the blitz is coming there, but he also knows he's got it blocked up initially. But yet he still does then feel the pressure coming around the backside and then get out of the pocket. He ends up throwing this ball away. But it's all the feel, because there's times where he just doesn't have feel. I'm going to show you in the pocket for when guys are near him and when they're bearing down. This was nice seeing this kind of one moment where he actually was doing it, because I'm going to show you some cuts where it just wasn't the case. Okay, so these are the good ones. These are the ones that kind of prep you up a little bit for some of the bad I go through on this. And again, just to put this through, we're going to look at the bad, but these are not things that are then to say this is who he is and who he's going to be and that he can't grow beyond that. It's just that these are the spots that we're going to specifically target as to what needs to be improved and what you should be paying attention to when you see him playing in the preseason this year to see if you see improvement off these items. See if these things are coming forward. And if they do, then that's going to give you that much more confidence here that he's going to be able to eventually cement himself as a starter here, as that quarterback of the future. Two things here first. People point to a lot of the completion percentage this last year, 63%. Salk gets caught up on this big time, I think, a little bit. And I think the problem with college football, when you look at the completion percentage, is that even more so than pros, there are so many easy throws baked into these offenses. So many simple throws. And so it just artificially pushes your completion percentage up more than ever before. So just some of the easy throws I want to show you here. And I'm just going to roll these through as a montage because you guys will get the idea quick here. A little pop pass throw to the flat, right? Boom, done there. Another read option play here. Throw to the flat over here. Another quick throw out to the flat. I mean, every single game, this stuff is all over the tape. Every single game, it's all over the tape. Read option here. Throw out flat. Little bubble screen, quick throw. I mean, if you look at this too with the jerseys on this, if you're looking at the colored jerseys of the team they're playing here, you can see that I'm not taking these from like 7 different games. This is all just a couple of games on just these easy passes I collected. And it is all over the tape. So when you look at the completion percentage, you're going to get tricked a little bit. And you're going to get tricked a little bit if you get caught up on that part of it, because the completion percentage doesn't really tell the whole story about where his accuracy is at play in and play out, throw in and throw out. A little throw to the flat. This is another different play. I think you guys can probably get the impression here of what I'm trying to sell. Here they do a trick play. Look at all this. Look at all this eye movement just for this. It's a lot of action for not a lot of play on that one. You're going to do a trick play, man. At least do something. You go through all that. At least try to take a shot down the field. Goodness. Oh, this is one of his not great throws here I was going to show. So you get the idea there. The easy throws are baked in, pushes up the completion percentage a little bit. Going to do the same here with just showing you guys some of the deep throw accuracy. And I just kind of want you guys to notice on some of this. It's a big claim to fame with him, and not just deep throw accuracy, but just kind of all throws here that are kind of deeper along the lines. If it's an in-cutting route or something like that, it's one thing. If he's going to have to go out around the numbers, that's where we're going to start to get into dodgyville. That's where things are going to get a little bit rough. And as you notice on these cut-ups, you're going to kind of see, I think, the fact that these throws are really nowhere close. Like he's missing pretty badly in a lot of these tosses. And that's where he can be a bit of a pray and spray guy. Like, I'm going to just kind of get it in the general area. There are times that you do get him where it can be exact. There are times where it'll be right there on the right spot. But there's other times like this throw where you're going, who's that to? Where are we going with this one? I know you're in the end zone. You're just trying to get the ball out. Maybe a throwaway. This one, his guy's got separation here. I mean, he flattens this thing out. Doesn't have as much of the moonball of a Russell moonball kind of thing. So he's got to be all the more accurate when he's kind of throwing these flat 9 routes. And his guy's got separation here. That should be a touchdown. Another one here. Does get hit as he throws. Nowhere close. Bottom of your screen. Look at the bottom of your screen here. Look, he does get hit, but the ball's out of his hands by the time he's getting hit. Doesn't really affect the throw. Throw's already off by the time he's getting smashed. I will say something that does stand out is that the Alabama pass protection left a lot to be desired outside of Booker. Another one here where you're going back shoulder throw here, and just whistles this thing 5 feet over his head. Not in the vicinity. That's not going to work. You got to get closer than that. Rolling to his left. When he rolls to his left or he rolls to his right, his accuracy will wane. It's another spot that there's going to have to be some heavy duty coming forward on. Another one here, just decision making. Where are you going with the ball on this one? Why are you choosing to go here? You notice here, he's got a lane to step up in the pocket here and go scramble. I know Pierce is on his backside, and like I said, the tackles sucked with Alabama. But climb up in the pocket here. Instead, he ends up throwing the ball where his receiver has no separation. The corner's actually in front of the receiver, running the route better than the receiver. And now Ryan Williams basically has to play cornerback to make sure this doesn't get... That's a separate throw there, by the way. Those are different throws back to back. I just showed you. They might look like the same, but see how Tennessee guy's in front of him that time. This one, he gets in front of him. These are actually back to back the same plays. And this one's really worse than the last one I just showed you. Because this guy's got separation here. The safety's not going to get there. The throw's off. Just wildly inaccurate on it. Nowhere in the vicinity of his guy. Well, it got a hand on it, I guess. So you'd say he's in the vicinity. But you can see there that accuracy's going all over the place when he's got to push the ball down the field. There are certain throws that'll be better than others, but the accuracy side of it, cleaning up the mechanics all the way through, getting your point to where your delivery is consistent, play in and play out. Because a lot of these throws, it's not him moving or him throwing off platform. It's him with his his spikes in the ground, and he's got a good base under him, and everything should be good for him to get a good throw off there and get stepped into it. He is a little bit of a heel clicker in the pocket when he drops back on his drop backs. His feet are kind of all over the place, where they tell you to kind of step towards your target when you want to throw to your target, get that front foot pointed towards where you're going to throw the ball. You watch a lot of his tape, his foot's out here and he's throwing here. His foot's over here and he's throwing here. His foot's here and he's throwing there. He really has too much of that opening himself and keeping his width opened up, which then just reduces a little bit of his accuracy and does cost a little bit of his velocity there on the other side of it in addition to that. So he's got to clean that part up. This is going to come, I think, from getting the mechanics a little bit tighter, getting his base to fully talk to his upper half and making sure that the base is in the right position. There's a lot to go there with him. Certain throws that he can make really good, but on some of that stuff, deeper stuff down there, it's going to get a little bit touchy. Looking at a couple of his interceptions here and from last year, there's not going to prolong these with big deep shots on this as much, but where are my interceptions? I was having some issues here prior to it. Did these not do what I want them to do? I was having technical issues, so I might not be able to show the interceptions here. Well, I'll just show one of them. So here just completely predetermines he's going to throw it to the top of your screen. And the corner, he's anticipating to take, the slot guy. Instead, the corner drives out to the outside receiver. And Milroe's just locked on him on the whole time there, unfortunately. And I had some other interceptions here, but I was having some technical difficulties prior to the show today. So maybe it's all for the better we don't show those. But just a tough interception here. I mean, this is kind of brutal. You're throwing a pick on a bubble screen. A few kind of real rough interceptions this year from him. He had 11 of them on the year. Kind of hoped I was going to be able to show you guys a couple, but I was having some issues here with it. Yeah, it's not going to let me. Sorry about that. We had some technical difficulties. Pocket awareness. Pocket awareness here. Let's hope this whole thing didn't just break down on me. Sometimes pocket awareness ain't the greatest with him. See here, just getting cracked. Just the sense of pass rushers getting to him. I've got a lot of cut-ups of this, where guys just end up hammering him and he has no idea where it's coming from. And again, some of this is born from the offensive line situation. Some of this is just born from a lack of feeling what's going on in the pocket. In this case, it's a little bit on the other end of the scale. He's got a clean pocket here. It's well pass protected. Look at our guy Robbie Oots there, 45 helping out. You got some time here, He climbs kind of up into the pocket here, but if he just kind of pulls back a little bit here, takes a couple steps back, he's got all the time in the world. Instead, he ends up bailing out of the pocket. So it's two different things that you see with him on this kind of stuff. It's sometimes he'll leave a pocket that's clean just because he gets antsy in the pantsy. And then other times he'll just completely be tone deaf to what's going on around him as far as the pressure and what's bearing down in around him. I don't know how this kind of stuff exactly improves when it comes to that. I mean, here again, the guy's a free rusher. You got him. He's looking up the field. You want him looking up the field and not scared about pass rushers. But he's got a guy running at him free from 5 yards out. Just doesn't quite recognize him until he's right on top of him. Until he's about right here. Now he sees, oh God, I got a guy on me here. I love your eyes down the field. I love you being fearless like that. But a little bit of subtle pocket movement would have made this not happen. Or would have given him a little bit of time to maybe buy a little bit of extra time back there. Oh, shoot. Let me show the play. I spoke about it. I wasn't showing it. All right, here's the play on this. So pull down to the ground there. Look to the right side of the screen. The defender's about 5 yards away here. He's bearing right down in on him, right? Right down in on him. No dice. Just sees him about right there. There's just times I'd like to see him just kind of recognize things a little bit quicker in the pocket, a little more sense of urgency or you got time and patience at times in the pocket to deal with things. It's good to have your eyes down the field. You can see here he's got his eyes down the field. That's what's causing this. But then, whoa, now you're on top of me, buddy. Another one here. Just kind of senses this late. He's got a running back kind of coming up to try to hit. It's a horrible chip block by 22 there. Absolutely awful. I think that's Tonka Hemingway. Gets him just clipped. Not a lot he can do here, but little recognition, just a little bit of a climb quicker here. Get up into the front of the pocket. He's kind of got the idea of what he needs to do. He engages the right move here. That little climb move, get the ball away from the defender. See how he kind of pulls the ball away from the defender, keep him from being stripped. Climb up in the pocket, just a hair bit late. It's not his most egregious one on these, but sometimes just a hair late on these recognition with the stuff. Again, here is left tackle, who's awful, just gets his butt whooped. It's quick pressure, no doubt about that. But so many of these snaps I've got on tape with him just getting kind of blindsided where he just doesn't sense, and he's looking right at it coming, but just doesn't get the sense it's there. Hopefully this stuff comes forward with him. I don't know how you teach it, but this is the part I'd like to see a little bit more. Here, clean pocket. He's kind of not seeing it clearly, right? He's looking around. He's going through a couple, just not seeing it. He's got a guy right there in front of him flashing on the crosser, right in front of him. Dupree's right there. Ends up just kind of holding on the ball, getting it out late. How do you tell processing? How can you distinguish processing on a football field? Well, it's a play like this kind of can tell me a little bit about that. When you're so late to recognize the guy flashing right in front of your face. Right in front of your face there. As I said here, I'm not going to belabor these anymore too much with these. Progression reading is sometimes a little bit tough, gets a little bit locked in, but there is some moments there on tape where you can see it. Going back to some of the good. Here, starts out to the right, looks, comes back down to the check down. I love this play. This is the type of stuff that gets me super excited about Milroe. He's legitimately checking that first read. He's not just kind of trying to carry the safety's eyes with him over to the side. He checks the first read, comes back down to the second. In fact, he sees Dupree there, bam. It's not a fancy read or anything like that, but with him, this is good stuff that he's at least shown he can do it, and that maybe that can come forward in that way there. Some things that stood out a little bit, just you get plays a little bit like this at times too, where this is a 3rd and 5, it's 3rd and 5 from the goal line. So 3rd and goal, basically. You're going to kick this if you don't get this in. And that you have on a situation like this where you're 5 yards out thinking you're going to get a quarterback keeper read here. Kind of one of those moments where it tells me a little bit about the coaching staff's confidence in Milroe that you don't call a pass play here. That you're going with a read option on 3rd and goal. You got to kick this if you don't get this here. And maybe they're just being safe in this moment, but I did think it stood out a little bit to me in this game, a little bit when taking a look at him and kind of what was going on with him there. So these are the basic items you got to clean up with him. Got to get the pocket awareness cleaned up. Got to get the mechanics better on point. The progression read stuff, that's stuff that can come a little bit with time. I do think in certain respects you kind of have it or you don't, but there are some snaps I can find with Jalen Milroe where the progression read will be on point. And when it comes to making high-level throws and being able to make every throw in the book, and that if you're going to have a balanced offense where you're running the ball as much as you can to counterbalance that to the throwing, whereas before in the last couple of years especially, we've been just kind of drifting up higher and higher to being more pass-heavy as a unit, well, this is what then can help this guy out. Because if you're limiting down more to the throws, I think ideally this is a guy, Milroe, you want to keep, even at his best when he's starting in games like 30 attempts a game. There'll be about 5, 6, 7 rushing attempts on the back of that as well. Some of those rushing attempts can come on the back of passes, on pass attempts, But you keep down a little bit of the throws. You create situations where you have the defense really heavily accounting for both the run game with the running backs and what they could be doing, but then also with his legs and what he can be doing. And then you force those defenses to have to put extra concentration and extra resources into dealing with that element of your offense. And now the stuff on the backside opens up a little bit. This is the little bit of the counter I've talked about with the cover 2 shell. How do you break the cover 2 shell? What is going to be the new iteration to break the cover 2 shell? Run the ball. Force the defense to account for you running the ball, and specifically in that accounting, getting them to pull the safety up into the box. No more cover 2 shell where you're even Steven 12 yards off the ball. Now you're going back old school and you're bringing your cam, you're bringing your strong safety down into the box to be that extra linebacker. Now you're single high. Now we can do a lot more predictability to what you're doing coverage-wise with your outside corners and that single high safety. There's only so much stuff you're going to be able to do. Even with all the different coverages they roll in this modern era, you pretty much can lean on, okay, cover 3, cover 1, where we at, something like that is where you're going to kind of be sitting in those moments. So you can kind of simplify some things down, which then makes it easier for the quarterback's read in those moments for a guy like this that might have a little bit of slight deficiencies that are engaged in that side. But you can still find this guy maximally effective because of the fact that he's got the legs and he's driving defenses to have to act in a way that they don't normally act against a quarterback that would just be back there kind of, slinging it, throwing the ball around the field, kind of, Michael Penix type guy, right? Where you don't have to really worry as much about those legs. And so you can just play your coverages straight up and it not matter. I'm really hopeful that this guy can come forward and he's got the work ethic to do it. I've said oftentimes a little bit of my reticence on this just comes from the fact that when I base my opinion on the future of a player and whether or not he can attain or reach to a certain place of things, I do so on the back of trying to look at track record and history, because history tells you and informs you about the future. It's that old quote that those that don't pay attention to history are doomed to repeat the failures of it. And that's what you're trying to do. And that's why I try to anticipate these kind of players and projecting them out in a certain way, is that you're kind of playing to what the odds generally are on this, and generally are on this in a pretty hard-lined way. We just don't have a lot of track record of guys coming out with the exact types of deficiencies that Milroe has in his games, even with the good sparkling plus sides to it, and then having them really correct that. I think I'd mentioned it to somebody was having a discussion with us about this. Maybe EJ, it wasn't EJ Snyder, but somebody else I was talking with, and I was going, who do we have as a recent example of doing this? And they were like, well, Brett Favre. I was like, oh, no, Brett could throw the ball. Throwing the ball was not the issue for Brett with that side of it. He had to, tamper down the interceptions to get less wild with it. But that was more about just kind of cleaning that style of his game. But every quarterback's got a different thing that you got to kind of fix and clean up. We know exactly what we got to deal with here with Milroe. The good part of this is that he's got 2 things that are really going to help him out here. Number 1, you're going to give him the time. You've got Darnold on a multi-year deal. You got Drew Lock on a 2-year deal. If he's a little bit rough around the edges and he's going to take that time, you can truly give him the 2 years to let him develop, which is absolutely, to me, as much key as anything in this situation. You've got to let him develop. And then the second part is the work ethic. This guy is going to get down and he is going to grind. He's going to get after it day after day after day. I remember Russell Wilson used to have an armband, and I thought, there's some things with Russell, you kind of roll your eyes on. This one was not one of them. I think it spoke to, as a professional athlete, I imagine that there's got to be a lot of impatience at times in grinding on something and grinding on something and grinding on something, and you're not quite seeing the steps forward taken on it, despite the fact that you're working on it, because it's so hard to kind of master some of this stuff. And Russell had a little armband that used to, it takes time, and it was like a synonym or whatever, and it's right. This is going to take time. I got to know that it's not today that this is going to happen, that this is give me my time. This is where we get down to the end of the road. That's who the player I'll be. That's what I'm going to be able to finally realize who I am and be a guy that can be a top 8, 7, 6 quarterback in this sport if he can work on the game in this way. So I'm very hopeful with Jalen Milroe, and having those 2 big parts in his back pocket here are something that's usually, I think, if we look at other quarterbacks that haven't developed, I think one of those 2 things is missing when we go through the failures in recent history, that we can backtrack and go, oh, well, he didn't really have the timeline. They weren't going to be patient to let him grow. That's where you could point to it. Or you could look to the fact of, hey, the guy was tremendously talented, but unfortunately he just didn't have the work ethic. He didn't have the leadership. He didn't have the goods inside him to be able to drive himself in the way, to be able to take advantage of that great physical talent. There is no more physical talented player you will find than a Jalen Milroe like this. The raw goods are as good as it gets in this respect of things. The ceiling is as high as you can look up and see. It's just a matter of whether he can get to the realization of that. That is going to be the key here. And the Seahawks, with the 3rd round pick, have not taken a big swing on this one. This is not one where you've set your franchise back 10 years if he comes in and he can't quite be that guy. And there's certainly, even if he just falls flat on his face, a way to pull back some value from this draft pick and being able to kind of mix him in at times with some of those read option looks. Mix him in at times maybe on some of the, Philly, if they're going to still keep the Philly shove, but kind of the quarterback dives and whatnot. They had a great play. I know in watching him here recently, There's one play that they ran where there was a read option play. I want to see the Hawks run this, where they're running the read option to the running back at a shotgun, and then they fake it to the running back, and then they have the running back run out and become the lead blocker for Jalen Milroe out in space. And there's so many cool little ways that you can use him with his legs in that way that stands out and be dynamic in that area and creative in that area of things. Another cool little play I did want to show you too here before we get over to you guys on the donos. I thank you guys for that. This is just a cool play that I was going through the film study and watching. I put it up on my Clips channel. But you got on this play, if you notice here, before I go to the snap, we got Milroe as a quarterback here, Seahawks 3rd round pick. And then if you look over, you got your 5th round guy, 6th round guy there, and Oots out there, Robbie Oots, 45, out there setting up to block. And do you guys notice who Oots is blocking here? He's got himself up against Nick Emawari. So a kind of a cool thing here where you've got 3 future Seahawks in one draft, all in on this one play, centerpiece to this one play. Oots, not a bad block on Emawari. And Emawari, great job fighting off of it and to get back in on the play on Milroe. But I had to show you guys this play because I thought this was pretty cool. Just kind of a cool play there. So I'm hopeful. You guys let me know what you think, comment section, and let me know if you guys are more hyped up on Milroe, if you've got the faith he's going to be able to realize this potential, or what maybe gives you that faith. Give me some pearls on this to help me feel even better about this selection. And don't feel bad about it necessarily in that respect. To just have a little bit of the reticence on, believing on some of this, that this stuff's going to necessarily all come forward, because there just is a lot to be done. It's going back to that Daniel Jeremiah quote, where it's just there's a long way to go. Assembly required. You just bought something off, from Walmart or from Costco or whatever, a table, and it comes out and they've got literally 1,000 pieces. And you're like, how can this one table have 1,000 pieces? This is going to take me all day. Yeah, it's going to take you a long time. But if you put it together right, you got yourself a table for 10 years. I thank you guys for watching today. If you can, hit that like button. Let's get a couple of these donations we got in the chat, as you guys are kind as ever on that. I do appreciate you guys watching. We're going to keep these daily shows going here through. We got tomorrow, Torrey Horton up. We're going to finish up the class next week, of course. Got a Saturday show as well for you guys. Specifically, not a Saturday show. We're just going to be dropping a Saturday video for you guys as well. So be on the lookout for that. Snail, thank you for 25 months as a Hawks Nest member. Says, hi, B. Give Pumpkin a salmon treat for me. I will do so. Absolutely, I will do so. They're very well fed right now. We've got Xena making a little bit of a rare appearance here on the Hawks Nest. It's a special day when we get a little bit of Xena watch going on, right? A little bit there. But Snail, thank you for 2 years as a Hawks Nest member. I appreciate you for that. We'll definitely get Pumpkin a salmon treat for you. Martin Lawrence, thank you for 4 months as a Hawks Nest member. I appreciate you for that, Martin. He says, after a bit of time, I'd say C+ on this pick. Yeah, I love that you go for a quarterback finally. I like that you select one. But when we come out of this draft, and some of the worries I have coming out of this draft a little bit with this team, still some concerns a little bit with this offensive line. But you do still look at the pick and you go, look, if we're getting down the bottom tax on this and not just saying, like, let me put on my homer glasses, let me look at everything with rosy colored view of things. Let me actually try to look at what, it is likelihood and not the likelihood in this situation. And, there's a reason that every NFL team, including your Seattle Seahawks, passed twice on this guy with his tremendous amount of talent, with his tremendous amount of upside. There is a reason. And it's not that these guys are just all out to lunch, because we know that the NFL teams absolutely loves themselves some quarterback. But their reticence in taking him is why some of my reticence exists in the belief that he's going to be able to really round out all of these skills. If there's one guy that could do it, if there's one guy who's got a built-in work ethic and drive inside him, as Mike McDonald talked about, the want to be great, if there's a guy that could do it, this is the type of guy that could do it. If there was one, this is the one that could do it. But to your point on this, Martin, we do look at the track record. We do look at history. And yes, everybody is an individual, and everybody's got their own individual story of how they got there and what drives them, and whether or not we should have confidence in them to reach whatever upside that they sort of tease. But there's also likelihood. Is it likelihood to happen or isn't likelihood? And guys in the 3rd round, quarterback-wise that are selected, just remove Jalen Milroe from the puzzle of this. Those guys don't tend to go out and do a lot of great things. I think you got Cousins and Russell Wilson here over the last 10 years. I'm probably missing a 3rd rounder somewhere in there. But if you got a 30% hit rate with quarterbacks in the first round already, that hit rate does not improve when you get into the second and the third round. But if you're going to take a big swing, I'll say this, Martin, take the big swing on the guy with the monstrous upside. And that's what you've done here with Jalen Milroe. So at least on that part, I can completely understand it. Martin Lawrence, thank you for another $10 donation. Martin, I really appreciate you for that. Elite athleticism, explosive speed, and a superb arm strength. But I have concerns over his ability to read the field. Mechanics on short, intermediate throws are just okay. It stems from his footwork. Yeah. Yeah, it's footwork's a big part of it because his feet on the drop back. Just watch Milroe on the drop back and look at his lower half and his base. And what I want, you don't even have to really be a quarterback guru on this. What you want to watch him, you watch him on his base on the drop backs, Martin, is watch how he's not replicating just on the lower half alone. Same's true on the upper half. I mean, the arm will be all over the place at times. His rotation will be all over the place at times. But just on the lower half alone, the footwork is never the same. He could make the same throw 5 times in a row, and you might see his footwork operate differently. One time he heel clicks, one time he keeps his base too wide, one time he's short stepping it a little bit on the back. It's just not the same every time. So footwork's a part of it, but I think what really it's down to here is that you want to have a quarterback throwing motion that is the same every time. That it's coming out the same, that your lower half's working to your midsection, your torque's twisting off, the arm's coming out in the same fashion, and that you're replicating that throwing motion again and again and again. And it's not unusual that a young guy would come out and have his throwing motion, throw in and throw out, be a little bit all over the place in that way. But that is what really causes the issues on the short throws is he's not ever the same in the way he sets up and throws. Every time it's almost a little bit different. And as I said too, a big part of it as well in the footwork is not just the footwork and getting the feet under him right and true and having a good base under him. It's stepping in the right direction. I mean, this is something that goes to even people that play baseball know this. You know, where you step is where your front foot steps is where the ball is going. So if you throw your step out here, but you're throwing to here, ball's going to kind of end up splitting the difference on you. And you're not going to be able to be exact and pinpoint in your accuracy. And so that's where that's got to be cleaned up heavily. That's going to be him just going through and replicating that motion over and over again and not getting sloppy with it, not getting lazy with it, locking in all of those details. And that's why you have to give him the 2 years here, Martin, because you're essentially kind of rebuilding the throwing motion from the ground up. And so in doing that, all of that muscle memory is kicked in from years of doing it his old-fashioned way. You got to override that like a new program. And then the only way to do that is then through massive repetition. So there we come back to why we can't have him onto the field is that you have a quarterback who's literally on every drop back thinking, feet here, shoulder here, get your base up here, get the front foot stead out here. He's thinking of like 6 different things that he's going through his process before he gets to the throw. Okay, I throw that guy in a football game who's thinking through those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items to get the throw off. He's not thinking about coverage. He's not thinking about progression read. He's not thinking about where the safety is over the top. He's just thinking in the back of his head, get to the back of your drop, get the feet close tight, step in the right direction, get your torque here, get the arm up here, So that's where 2 years down the line, all that stuff becomes second nature. And now when he is out on the football field, now it is reading the safety and reading the coverages and reading the fronts. And he just knows the throwing motion is going to be fine because he's locked it in. This is why you've got to give him that 2 years to make that happen, Martin. But if you throw him out there right now, you're right about all of your take on it in that the mechanics are going to be all over the place. I would say even that when it comes to it, you get a little bit of and you're referencing this as well in what you're hearing. You hear that there's the deep arm strength's just great. And instead, you just got to clean up the short and the intermediate stuff. It's like, no, the deep stuff, as I kind of showed on some of those highlight tapes at the top there on some of the deep throws, the deep throw stuff is off too. All of it is a little bit off. It's not, the worst ever, but it's just, it all is a little bit off. It all needs a bit of cleaning up. The reading in the field, more than the mechanics, has me reticent with him as much as anything, Martin. I think you can clean up the mechanics. You give a guy 2 years, you let him work on that. What did Aaron Rodgers do with the 3 years that he had to wait behind Brett Favre? Because Rodgers is one of those few quarterbacks who did really fully change his mechanics from college. If you go back and watch Rodgers at Cal, He's got the ball basically stuck to his ear hole when he's getting ready to throw the ball. So it's up here. It's a lot of him looking robotic and stiff and kind of upright. He gets to that 3-year period into the pros, and you see him now really start to work on the torque and the whip action that he would throw with. He does that little move where he gets both feet off the ground at once when he throws to kind of create even more velocity on his tosses, and he increased his arm strength with it, increased his accuracy with it. And so you can do that, but what did you give Rodgers? You gave him 3 years to do that. If Rodgers had walked in year one and he's thrown out there to start immediately, we might see robotic football up in his ear hole Rodgers for the rest of his career and probably a little bit more of a limited player. So got to give him that time, but the reading of the field is definitely the one that I worry most about when it comes to Milroe, just because there are so many snaps and looking at him where he's dropping back and he's not seeing anything clearly. You can almost feel, I feel like I could feel a confused look on his face without seeing his face. By his body language, by how he's looking back there through his reads, by the, things are just kind of going from here to here, and then, okay. It's a little bit like that. And that's the part where I hope he can get in the VR setup, and I hope they have new methodologies to be able to teach that, because that in the past has been something you can't really teach. You kind of got it or you don't. You can get better with it. If you got it a little bit to a degree, you can get even more of it as you get to the pros. But if you don't really have much of it, it's hard to kind of come from 0 to 100 with that. But that will be the key with him, Martin. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right on that. DJ W, thank you for the $2 donation. DJ, it's good to see you in the house, brother. Thank you for the donation. And didn't have any comment put on the end of your dono there, but I thank you for that and appreciate you. Hope you're having a good day. Thanks for watching, man. Washington Fish Quest, thank you for the $2 donation, Washington Fish Quest. Will VR training turn Milroe into a super quarterback? Well, the processing is exactly what that's going to deal with, because you couldn't teach processing before because you couldn't get the reps to the quarterback on the field to be able to pull it off. I go out, I got, what am I going to have on a practice? 30, 35 reps I'm going to be able to run offensively speaking. And that's not going to be, by the way, in really live fire drills, right? Because you don't have padded practices. You don't have players running full speed. So you are getting a rep, technically speaking, but are you getting a true rep? Well, with the VR training, you can run it just like you have it in game day. Hell, you can do exactly what Jaden Daniels has done, which is turn it up. And I'm running something at 150% the speed of what it's going to be normally. That's absolutely going to make it to where when you go down to 100%, it's going to seem like it's slow motion. So VR makes a lot of sense. It's no empty talk here. I'm not just trying to gas people up on Milroe with this. VR is a whole new thing that's just come into play. It's getting refined right now. It's getting better. It's getting improved. That this is the thing that can now take what has formerly been a skill that you could not advance, and very much, I think and believe, can advance it. I can see how that can happen, because it just takes you having all of those reps. And if I've got now on my background coming into the season with the VR training I've done, so instead of just having the practice reps over training camp where I cumulatively would have been running, and especially in Milroe's case, let's say he's just taking 10% of the snaps. So I'm getting maybe 200 snaps over the course of training camp. And that my mode of improvement then on that progression front is going to have to come out of those 200 snaps. Well, now I get 10,000 snaps. I know I'm shooting a little bit for the moon, but you get the idea here. I started the VR training out here in April. Every day I'm making sure I've got, 100 times I'm going through a play a day. I mean, I would if a player. I think it's stupid if you're not, especially if you're driven like this guy. I'd have that thing. I'd be going to the store with it on my head. People be out there. I'd be doing these moves. People are like, what are you doing? I am training. I'd have that thing just, you hear about the bum head that you get, the bump head you get where, from wearing the headsets too long, and those guys that are streamers get the little bump in their head. I'd have the same thing on my face with the VR glasses. You just have those the permanent indentation on my face. I'd be giving interviews and it'd just be like little red here, red here. Like I'm just into this, man. I'm buying in on this. So this could be the great equalizer. This could be the fountain of youth, the holy grail for quarterbacks in this thing that they could not develop prior, because you're able to rep it out so much more than you ever could. And in Jaden Daniels' case, when you watch him play, it just doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. You're a rookie last year, and you're just you're so at ease in the pocket. You've got so much poise. You're so comfortable. You're so relaxed. How? You only weigh 180 pounds, one good hit, and your weird ass elbow is going to be broken this way, and you're going to be snapped in half. Jalen Carter's picked you up with one arm a couple of times in his career alone. And even at the SEC, it was more of the same, going from Arizona to LSU, where he was in that final year, just everything he was reading was just smooth and easy, putting the ball in the right place, finding the right matchup. Defense is not confusing him in the least. And so lean on this, hopefully, Washington Fish Quest. Lean on this. And Milroe, just do it as much as you can, knowing that you've got a guy in Daniels that's had this success on the back of this. And the combination, man, the combination of getting the 2 years, working on the mechanics, strapping on the VR, just having that internal drive to be great inside him as well. These are nice little, this is a nice little bit of kindling with some gasoline and a little bit of a couple matches on the side. It's not a full-blown fire here, but we've got some nice little elements here to create that potentially. But thank you for watching Fish Quest. It's good to see you in the house, man. Basic, thank you for subscribing to the channel, Basic. Welcome aboard the Hawks Nest, and thank you for doing that, man. I appreciate you. The HHG, thank you for the $2 donation. He mentions something very interesting here, which is that Jadeveon Clowney has been released by the Carolina Panthers. So an interesting move there by the Panthers, letting go of Clowney. Clowney had a decent year for them last year, a little nicked up here and there, but played pretty good ball for the Panthers overall. Typical kind of Clowney season, strong against the run, pretty good against the pass. We know that he's had his best season with Mike McDonald with the Baltimore Ravens, not last year, but the year before. I think that definitely does open the door potentially of this to occur. You would probably then make some commiserate move to the other side of this at that point, being that you are probably then going to move one of your other edge rushers if that's going to be the case. And at that point, it's probably one of Derek Hall or Boye Mafe, I would say. So I don't know if I could predict on this one that the team's going to be, running hard after Clowney on that one. It certainly is possible with the familiarity with Mike and knowing in Mike that Clowney is an absolute positive, perfect fit for what he wants off his edge in this defense. And DeMarcus Lawrence gives you a little bit of this right now, early down wise. So you get a bit of this, but boy, if you had Clowney on one side and you did Marcus Lawrence on the other side on early rundowns, and then you could run out a Mafe Hall or a Mafe and a Uchenna, then it's just pure pass rushers behind those guys. Throw that kind of wave at it. I'd love that. I'd love that probably more as the four stack than what we currently have kind of right now. Because I just do, you guys know I have an affinity for Clowney, but I also for the fact that Clowney fits perfectly into this defense, and Mike McDonald knows perfectly how to utilize Clowney. He knows what he's built to do. He knows what he's not built to do. And that fits absolutely right in Mike McDonald's defense. So it'd be something worthy of tracking there, in a way where John Schneider, in this case, if he went and got a Clowney, could find a way then to, if you're looking at Hall and Mafe and maybe you don't have an intention of signing these guys to contract extensions, and that, okay, we can find a way to get some value back on these guys now. We've got our pass rush still 4 deep. We've got our fits, and now we can go and build up another part of this defense, making another kind of move to another area. Can you move maybe one of these edge rushers for a quality cornerback somewhere? Team that needs some edge rush help that might be willing to let go of one of their outside corners. I'm not saying that I got anything specific in mind, but that you can find some creative ways then on the back of this kind of signing to make it even more beneficial, HHG, if you were to go after him. But that got me as very interested as well. Kind of surprised to see them let him go. I didn't expect that one myself. And we'll see if he's going to be in play. I think probably Baltimore's probably a potential place that he lands as well on this. They're going to be in on that. I think with Clowney too, I'm not sure that he's going to want to come back out to the West Coast. He's mainly been kind of a Midwest, East Coast guy throughout his career. But very interesting, HHG. Jordan, thank you for the $5 donation. Jordan says, thank you for the deep dives. Watching film is always fun. We're going to try to do a lot of that throughout this year as I can, Jordan, with these kind of shorter shows. It does give me a little bit of the time to be able to go and do some background of pulling the clips and trying to get the clips collected right, get them set up right. So I'm going to be doing this throughout, through the season, hopefully as well on some of these, and giving you guys some of these shows where we can do a little bit more of the film study stuff. But it's always fun going in the film. And, the highlights will tell you a story and the game tape will tell you a story, and you put it kind of all together and looking at the guy. And I think you really get the full determination of them at that point when you walk away. And it's always a place where there's a lot of gray. It's never usually just the black and white. Guys all good, guys all bad. And Jalen Milroe's case, that's absolutely is the case. But Jordan, we'll keep these going, man. We've got Torrey Horton coming in on tomorrow, on Friday. And we'll be back with Riley Mills on Monday. We're going to do Ricky White. I'm going to maybe do Robbie Oots. It's a little bit hard on Oots because there's not a ton of tape there with him to really build off, to really go into too much with him. But we'll be looking at a few more of these guys, kind of get into the depths with them a little bit. But thank you, man, Jordan. I appreciate the donation, and I enjoy doing these, man. So thank you. We've had a really great turnout here with the new show style that we're doing here this week. I appreciate all of you guys for hopping in here and checking out the new format and dealing with the new format and understanding on how and why we're kind of rolling a little bit with the deal. So I appreciate you guys for rolling with me on that change, as we'll be going real strong here through this off season and into the season. And I've got some big plans here on this channel this upcoming year to hopefully keep kind of expanding things out a bit here, Garth Knight, thank you for the $5 donation. Garth, he says, I love the spray and pray saying, hoping for the best with Milroe. Thanks for the coverage. Oh, Garth, it is my pleasure as one of the men who's been a long time and a big time contributor to this channel. I thank you for all you've done for this channel, as you've been one of the big folks out there to help keep this thing going, keep the engine rolling, as they were saying. And it's a spray and pray situation with Jalen sometimes when the ball's leaving his hands. I don't think, you ever play basketball, Garth, there's times in playing basketball where the ball comes out of your hand and from the second that it leaves your fingertips that it's going in, that there's no doubt that thing is going right in. I'm getting splash city here, nothing but net, right? You can feel it in that way. I think like a quarterback in the same way, when you drop back and you make certain throws, like, ooh, that felt good. That's going to be, I'm going to have that thing pinpointed right on the spot. With Jalen, I think there's a lot of him dropping back and sort of like, I hope that gets there. It's kind of like a golfer hitting a shot where he's like, I hope nobody's down over in that area. Ooh, that one's a little off. But it is a little bit of that, I'm going to get it in the general vicinity thing, Garth, more than I'm going to get it into the pinpoint placement thing. And there's room for that to grow a bit. I do have a hard time and struggling with believing that you go from being kind of a spray and pray guy college-wise to now you're pinpoint guy at the college level. Maybe it's possible. Maybe he will be the guy that can show us that this is a road that now we're going to start to be able to go down, because they have the teaching tools and teaching tools in place to be able to push these guys forward in a way that prior you couldn't do. You just didn't have the methods. But it is at times when you watch him where you're just kind of trying to get that in the general area, huh? I will say this too with Milroe, is that if you do get Milroe to point of starting, you're probably then, Garth, going to want to give him a lot of big, long, huge catch radius kind of guys, where I can go get the ball that's like 2.5 feet out away from my body. Even though I have separation, I'm right here, I can still reach back and go grab that catch. This was the whole thing with Cam Newton there with Carolina. Carolina used to do this with Cam because he was not a very accurate guy. So Greg Olson's in there. You get him Kelvin Benjamin in there. You try to get him these really big guys that can go and reach up and go get it and overcome a little bit of the accuracy issues, which it's a method of approach, I suppose, on that one. But thank you, Garth. I appreciate everything you do here for the channel as well, man. And it's my pleasure getting to do what I do here, man. I love what I get to do. Me coming in, finishing us off awesomely, as me has a tendency to do. My man is, he's my hero here. This is my hero on this channel right now. Coming in, dropping 100s, dropping 50s like today, over and over and over again. You are unbelievable, me. I really thank you, man, for your great support to this channel. You guys throughout this off season, where times, usually go kind of quiet on this, I've got a lot of you folks like yourself, me, that have been just tremendous in having my back this offseason and being able to keep this thing going. And as I say, keep the lights on in so many ways, to be able to still go through this offseason and do this stuff. I love going into these players and looking at the deep dives of them and having the time to be able to just kind of grind through these tapes, look at the film and get a kind of a complete picture of things. Hopefully then provide you guys a little bit more complete picture of these prospects, of the team, of the players and whatnot on that. But thank you, man, for another just big old $50 donation coming in here at the end of this channel. I appreciate you for that, man. You are awesome. Awesome, brother. He says, go get some tacos, B. I'm going to do the same. Go Hawks. Go 12s. Pulling for Milroe. I Love his work ethic. Taco sounds really good today. I think I'm going to have to do some tacos today, man. You got me. I wasn't thinking tacos, but now I'm thinking tacos. I'm thinking salsa, you know, little meat, little cheese, little lettuce. Let's go. Let's go. And I'm pulling for Milroe here too. It may seem like sometimes on some of the negative things I've got to talk about with him, I'm not able to be as effusive in my praise. It is to try to be a little bit balanced and just give you guys the full picture of what I've kind of been looking at in my own mind with him when I'm trying to really evaluate him and really suss out what is what and how this all will go. But I love his talent. I love the fact that you are swinging for a guy with the upside if you're going to go for a quarterback. Something that we've been missing here, for years in Seattle, and something that's driven me crazy a little bit as a Seahawks fan, is how infrequently we really get the really great, highly talented quarterback. Jim Zorn, he could move a little bit, but that arm strength was limited. Dave Craig, he could move a little bit. He had baby hands. He was a fumble machine, but he had a decent arm, better arm than Zorn, but still kind of limited arm when it was all said and done. You got Rick Meyer as your number 2 overall pick, but then just could never really tap into it. Didn't really have the upper level physical ability. He could move a little bit. The arm was okay. Couldn't really throw to his left. And then you've got a bunch of guys you kind of, Kelly Stoffer, Dan McGuire, nothing there. In Russell, you've got the one legitimate guy, but even in Russell's case, you've got the 5'9" guy that you got to kind of work around a little bit of the height limitation stuff. So it'd be nice to have finally the guy that's kind of the full meal deal for the position. And especially hurts when we could add an opportunity to draft a Warren Moon. If we'd been willing to flip one more extra first-round pick, we could have had a John Elway. If you didn't have an owner that had an affinity for baseball and wanted to draft Dan McGuire because he liked Mark McGuire, his brother, you would have had Brett Favre, who Chuck Knox wanted to have. That's who Chuck wanted to draft. So you've had also these times where you've missed out on some of these real high-level quarterbacks through your team history, while you've not been able to cement that one tried and true guy yourself. And maybe Milroe, can finally be that guy. He certainly is as talented a quarterback as you have had in Seattle Seahawks history. There's nobody that's going to put this amount of skill all together, or this amount of physical ability all together. Now it's just about refining it and getting it to the stage where you can tap into all of it. And that's going to be the key to it. And you touch upon the most important part, and the part that's the great part on this one, for us to finish up today. Work ethic. You like to think all these guys are hard workers. You like to think all these guys love the sport. I'm going to tell you something right now. Not everybody loves the sport that's a professional football player. A lot of them don't. A lot of them are there collecting their check, doing the bare minimum, going through the motions, doing just enough so that they can keep their job, doing just enough so they can keep signing their multi-million-dollar contracts. And then you have your guys that are wired differently. Then you have your guys that are wired that want to be great, who want to separate, who want to ascend. And that they've got that one-track mind to become that, and they're going to get it by any means necessary. And that those guys, as much as anybody else with the physical great talent, are the guys that can then become great. Where you have lightning in the bottle is when you get that mentality combined with the physical ability. That's when the lightning's striking. And that's what you got here is the potential with Jalen Milroe as we move into the future. That part is dead set, absolutely real. Don't know if he's going to get there, but there's no doubt that you have that for a team in its 50-year history that has had not very much of that at all. So we'll see if he hits it, but I think it's well said on your part. And if he's going to get there, if you're going to have as much confidence as anything in the world in his ability to get there, it's not a Jordan Palmer. It's not the great environment here in Seattle he's going to go to. It's not the patience that the team is going to instill in him to give him the time to develop. All those things are good. But the capper, the cherry that gives me really a lot more confidence than anything else, to your point, is his ability with the work ethic, his ability to just get in there and grind. And everybody that you've heard talk about this kid, to a man, has said over and over again that he is wired that way. And I just don't believe that being smoke at this point. I believe it being real. And that will give him the opportunity. That will give him the chance where so many wouldn't if they didn't have that kind of work ethic built in them. We'll see if he can get there, you guys. We'll see if he can tap into this great potential. But the potential is there. The arm strength, great. Live on arm as you're going to find. He's going to whip these 15-yard post routes, and he's going to put it on a literal line. 4.37 speed in the open field. This man's going to break 50, 55, 60-yard runs in his career. You better believe it. That's as real as it's going to get. He can spin it. We just got to get these little extras all around the edges here figured out, fixed, honed out, if you would. We'll be back tomorrow, folks, with another show looking at Torrey Horton, a very, very talented wide receiver out of Colorado State who should not have fallen to the Seahawks where he did in this draft, who should have been taken much higher, as has been a very common reality of this recent draft and what Seattle, I think, has gotten real hot to trot on here in the last couple of years, only burgeoned on by the success of Jackson Smith and Jigba, is to look for those players who've gone through maybe a final year of their college career where injuries have come up. Maybe injuries have come up to cut their season short, or injuries have come up to hold them back of being at their best throughout the whole season to maximize their final college year, because it is that final college year that determines for most NFL teams where they're going to gauge you as a prospect. And in Torrey Horton's case, he is a guy with the final year of his college career coming off those injuries as he is and not able to get fully healthy out. Wasn't even, I think, kind of fully to health at OTAs, who got robbed of his draft status because of that final year. But when you go through those other 2 years he had, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, 18 touchdowns receiving, great as a punt returner. He can even sling it and throw the rock around the field a little bit. There's a lot this guy brings to the table, and there's no way that the Seattle Seahawks should have gotten their hands on him. Got a lot of potential steals in this draft for your Seattle Seahawks. Milroe might just be one here in the third round, and he might be the biggest of any of them. You might have about 4 or 5 we come to find down 3-4 years down the road that they were able to pull out of this draft in the way that where they grabbed him, from a Milroe to a Arroyo to Horton here, maybe even a Ricky Wright. So a lot of these kind of players, this guy is exactly that, but he's going to be a lot of fun to go and check out tomorrow. So come back here at 12 o'clock tomorrow, Pacific Standard Time. We're going to be looking at Torrey Horton, and I'm going to tell you, you're going to love this kid's game. He is a lot of fun to watch. I thank you guys today for watching. If you could do me a favor and hit that like button if you get a chance, maybe sub on up like our guy Basic has done so. I would really appreciate it. We'll be back in less than 24 hours with some more going on here, and we'll have a show on Saturday. We'll have a video here for you guys on Saturday too. But I do appreciate you guys watching. I thank you for all the donations. HHG, Jordan, Garth Knight, B, Washington Fish Quest, DJ, and Martin Lawrence. You guys are awesome for that support. We're going to keep this going throughout the offseason. At the very least, 5 shows a week, Monday through Friday. We're going to get a couple of mixed in there on the weekend as well to just keep this thing rolling 24/7. We don't slow down. Why? Because there's no offseason here at the Hawks Nest. We just go 24/7. That's just how we do it. It's the only way we know. Thanks for watching. Back soon. But until next time, please don't you ever forget. Don't do it. Come on, just don't do it. Go Hawks.